The international terminal of JFK Airport buzzed like a restless hive, the rolling echoes of boarding announcements bouncing off high glass ceilings while travelers dragged wheeled luggage across polished floors. But within that familiar hum of airport chaos, a young black woman named Amara Johnson stood with a calm dignity that belied the storm she sensed was about to come, her posture tall, her dark blazer pressed, her leather carry-on slung neatly by her side, the picture of a professional traveler prepared for another long-haul flight, yet beneath her composed surface she carried a secret no one in the terminal would have guessed. She was not simply another passenger shuffling through security lines and waiting for her gate to open, she was an undercover aviation inspector working for the Federal Aviation Administration's Office of Inspector General, one of those rare agents tasked with slipping unnoticed into the world of commercial air travel to investigate discrimination, misconduct, and violations of federal law by airlines and their staff, a role she had accepted years earlier after personally experiencing too many instances of unjust treatment in airports where the balance of power so often tilted against passengers, especially passengers who looked like her. Amara had learned to hide in plain sight, her face revealing only the mild patience of a seasoned traveler while her sharp eyes caught every detail, from the tone of voice gate agents used with certain customers to the way security officers selected who to pull aside for random checks, storing all of it in a mind that remembered like steel, later to be turned into reports that could alter careers and trigger sweeping investigations. On this gray morning, her assignment was straightforward on paper: evaluate the staff of a major international airline notorious for receiving civil rights complaints, observe their behavior, and document whether incidents of racial bias were isolated or systemic. But in practice, assignments like this were never straightforward, because unlike numbers in a spreadsheet, human cruelty was unpredictable, and one never knew when an employee would decide to bare their teeth in front of the wrong traveler. Standing in the snaking check-in line, Amara could feel the weight of eyes on her already, the subtle shift of glances from other passengers, some curious, some dismissive, one or two openly suspicious, but she had lived this too many times to flinch, focusing instead on the quiet rhythm of her breathing, centering herself as she edged forward toward the counter where a middle-aged woman with a crisp uniform and a permanent scowl processed each passenger with curt indifference. The agent's name tag read M. Roberts, and though Amara had never met her before, she immediately recognized the archetype, the gatekeeper who relished the thin slice of power granted by her position, a woman who decided with the flick of a pen or the bend of her lips who deserved to glide through smoothly and who should be made to suffer delays, humiliation, or worse. Amara watched her closely as Roberts greeted a white businessman ahead with a polite smile, almost deferential, handing back his passport with a chirpy, "Enjoy your flight, sir," only to immediately harden her expression when the next passenger, a South Asian mother with two small children, stepped forward, her voice growing sharp as she demanded extra documents and sighed dramatically when the woman produced them. The pattern was clear, and Amara's instincts, honed by years of fieldwork, told her this was the kind of employee she had been sent to observe, the kind whose unchecked biases poisoned the travel experience for countless people each day. When her turn came, Amara slid her passport across the counter with a calm nod, her eyes meeting Roberts's with polite neutrality, but she saw it immediately. The way the woman's gaze narrowed, scanning her face with a flicker of disdain, then glancing down at the navy blue booklet as though she doubted it belonged to the person handing it over. "Purpose of travel?" Roberts asked, her tone cold and clipped, not the friendly customer service script she had just used with the previous man. "Business," Amara replied smoothly, because it was technically true, her business was auditing this airline, but Roberts's mouth twisted into a smirk as she flipped through the pages of the passport with unnecessary slowness, pausing on the stamps as if searching for flaws. The agent murmured loudly enough for the line of passengers behind Amara to hear, "You've traveled quite a lot for someone your age. People try all kinds of tricks to slip through with fake documents, you know." The implication hung in the air, sharp and ugly, and Amara felt the sting of a dozen eyes drilling into her back, the weight of strangers silently judging, but she held her ground, her voice level and respectful as she answered, "That is a valid U.S. passport issued by the Department of State, ma'am. I would appreciate it being handled with care." Instead of acknowledging the request, Roberts's smirk widened, a cruel gleam flashing in her eyes as though she had just decided on some private test of dominance, and in one swift motion that made time seem to slow, she bent the cover back hard, then tore across the binding with a ripping sound that cracked through the terminal like a whip, gasps erupting from nearby passengers as the once pristine document dangled in her hand with its spine damaged and cover nearly torn off. "Guess it wasn't so official after all," Robert sneered, tossing the mutilated passport onto the counter with deliberate disrespect, her voice dripping with satisfaction at the spectacle she had created. For a fraction of a second, Amara's composure threatened to fracture under the wave of fury rising in her chest, because this was not just an act of petty cruelty but a crime, the destruction of federal property, the blatant obstruction of a citizen's right to travel. But years of training held her steady, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried an authority that silenced the terminal's murmur. "You've just destroyed federal property. And you've obstructed a federal investigation." The words cut through the air like glass shattering, and Roberts blinked, her smirk faltering into confusion, then fear, as Amara reached calmly into her blazer pocket and withdrew a slim black wallet, flipping it open with practiced ease to reveal the gleaming badge embossed with gold, the seal of the Federal Aviation Administration's Office of Inspector General catching the fluorescent lights so all around could see. Gasps spread through the crowd like a wave, cell phones rose into the air to capture the unfolding drama, and Roberts's face drained of color as she realized the enormity of what she had just done. "You're an inspector," she stammered, her voice cracking, but Amara stepped forward, her presence suddenly filling the space like a storm rolling in, and she said with icy precision, "Yes. And as of this moment, everything you've done here today is a matter of federal record."